Everyone says that teachers are underpaid. I've heard it my whole life, and it's so widely accepted that it's practically a cliche. But have you ever stopped to ask, is it actually true? We want teachers to be paid fairly, but what does that really mean? And could everyone just be wrong about teacher salaries? Hi, I'm Ken LaCorte. I spent a lot of hours digging into these numbers. I'm not here to convince you of anything except that I'm doing my absolute best to give you a balanced overview. And in the next few minutes, you'll know more than almost anyone on this topic, even your teachers. So the first thing to mention is that public school teachers don't have their pay set by market forces like most jobs. Teachers' salaries are decided by what politicians think they deserve. The profession is essentially a government-run monopoly, so teachers and their unions have a strong incentive to convince everyone that teachers are underpaid, whether that's really the case or not. And it's difficult to overstate the power of these unions. Teachers pay about $1,000 a year in union dues, so union budgets are a multi-billion-dollar affair. The biggest union in the United States, the NEA, has a yearly budget of over $500 million. In just California, the top teacher union there spends over $200 million a year. That money goes into press relations, studies, think tanks, white papers, magazines, YouTube channels. When you see a story about something bad that's hurting teachers, reporters didn't discover that just from their own research. It came from a well-oiled PR machine. And that machine is also a massive source of political donations to the same politicians who decide those teacher salaries. In the 22 election cycle, just the NEA alone gave over $55 million to political candidates and causes. And for those of you who like to keep score of these things, over 99% of it went to Democrats.
Educators have champions in the White House.
Teachers' unions are a vital part of the Democratic Party's coalition. Now, let me be clear. I'm definitely not saying that because they're powerful, that means they're wrong. But we all need to understand how much messaging is coming from those unions. And there really isn't a counterbalance to them. There's no teachers are making too much money lobby anywhere. Which is why, for instance, when you read about teacher salaries, they almost always talk about starting salaries instead of averages. And that can be very misleading. So the NEA tells us that the starting teacher salaries in the United States are almost $45,000. And the average teacher salary here is a good chunk more, just under $70,000. Now, this is a big country with over 3 million teachers, so it really makes anecdotes useless. I can show you a hardworking teacher in Arkansas earning $38,000 a year. I can show you a lazy one in California earning almost $200,000 a year. And money goes further in some areas than others, so throughout this video, I'll stick with national averages. Okay, first things first. How does that $70,000 stack up to other professions?
Anyone?
Well, it's less than a registered nurse or an accountant, about the same as a cop, and a bit better than a real estate agent or an electrician. Those numbers make it look like decent pay, but let's dig further down. Now, FYI, I've linked to all of my stats in the description box below. If I make any mistake, I'll correct it in a pinned post. Okay, so these comparisons don't take into account unique benefits and job security that teachers get, which we need to talk about. They significantly boost their overall compensation. No matter how you look at it, teachers get amazing perks, like no one else. The first is time off, like pretty much all of summer, about 2.5 months. That's a big deal. I worked in the corporate world most of my life, and I would have gladly given up a big chunk of my salary for that kind of freedom. Teachers also get time off for spring break, and winter break, and fall break, holidays, snow days, and personal days. There are 260 weekdays in a year, and schools are open about 180 of them. So if you look at teacher pay not by year, but by hours worked, it's a big bump up. Another big benefit to being a teacher is benefits. I won't get into the numbers, but they're fringe benefits, retirement pensions, healthcare. They outshine almost all private sector jobs. And the last huge benefit is really impossible to quantify: job security. In the private world, industries and companies often downsize and fire people in recessions, or sometimes go out of business altogether. In the public school system, that's super rare. Overall, government jobs are secure, and it's especially true for teachers. That's worth something. And part of that job security comes from teacher tenure. It was created to protect academic freedom and let teachers explore ideas without fear. It came from the college world, where the process takes about 7 years, and only about a third of professors actually get tenure. For public school teachers, it's a much easier and quicker process, where the vast majority get tenure, generally after 2 or 3 years probationary periods. After that, it's very hard to fire them. It's a unique perk. There aren't many professions anywhere where after a few years on the job, you can only be fired for gross misconduct. The extra perks of being a teacher are huge, and combined with their salaries, it makes teachers stick around in their jobs. The average number of teachers who quit or retire each year is about 8%. That's lower than the US average, but the numbers vary wildly by profession, so it's hard to make comparisons. Turnover is a lot higher for new teachers, but even including them, the average teaching career is 12 and a half years long. And teacher shortages? Despite frequent media reports, the data just doesn't support that. Sometimes they redefine the word shortage, or usually they focus on a specific region that's having trouble.
Maybe the sort of biblical level of teachers leaving the profession, it's not happening everywhere.
In reality, localized shortages are a feature, not a bug. If a district offers too little, potential teachers apply somewhere else, pressuring the district to raise salaries. But on a substantive scale, there is no teacher shortage in America. Now, some teachers say these raw salary comparisons don't account for the special challenges they face. They work long hours, often taking work home. During the school day, they're on the entire time, engaging students and managing a classroom of kids who can certainly be pains in the rear ends. It's not a cushy job. So let's take a look at the best arguments that teachers are underpaid. Teacher reps make two broad points. First, they say they're underpaid if you compare them to other fields with similar education and skill levels. And second, teachers play an essential role in society, that it's a noble position and should be paid accordingly. Helping young people expand their minds is unquestionably an honorable and important profession. A talented teacher can change someone's life. Heck, even a mediocre one can make students a little less stupid, and that's good for us all. And it seems obvious that the most important jobs in society should be the highest paid. Brain surgeons are important, and they should earn more than a blackjack dealer. But once you start looking into that notion of specialness, it's an idea that falls apart pretty quickly. Yes, without teachers, our societies would definitely be worse off. But without, let's say, farmers, we'd be dead. Or imagine how unpleasant the world would be without dentists, or mechanics, or electricians, or garbage collectors. I mean, pilots are pretty important too. I could go on, but in our connected society, you can easily make the case that most jobs are essential. Modern life only functions because of workers across a vast number of industries. A second major argument is that teachers are underpaid when you compare them to jobs that have similar education and skill levels. Jobs that need more training and talent should earn more, right? I mean, it seems fair that judges and scientists make more than a barista. And teachers generally need a bachelor's degree and some student teaching experience before getting their credentials. As I look through the numbers, teachers are roughly in line when you compare them with other jobs with similar credentials. But like the job importance argument, once you get past the extreme examples and try to compare skill levels across industries, it just gets messy. It turns into a world of competing anecdotes where you can choose whichever one suits your argument. Dental hygienists make an average of $84,000 with only a 2-year degree, while librarians with a master's degree earn a lot less than teachers. A car mechanic doesn't need a degree, but needs years of training to become competent. So while education and skill are certainly factors, they're only one of many that decide a salary. Because jobs all over the world, even teachers, operate under the laws of supply and demand. How much do people want that job? Salaries and benefits matter, and the job itself matters too. For me, working for the government and trying to teach history to a bunch of angsty teens doesn't sound like fun at all. But if I were choosing between that and being a roofer, dragging heavy crap up a ladder, hammering and spreading tar in the heat, no way, I'd choose being a teacher in a heartbeat. I'd even work summers. And what I just described is at the heart of capitalism. It's the invisible hand that economist Adam Smith described in 1759, where everyone's self-interest leads to the best version of fairness. On the surface, it looks like an amoral system. And if you focus on the outliers, a ball player making millions of dollars or a billionaire singer, it looks insane. But it's actually millions of human beings making decisions for themselves about their own careers and their own lives, deciding what to pursue and what to ignore, weighing the sacrifices against the benefits. And the people who chose to be teachers have done exactly that. But as I mentioned earlier, public school teachers don't operate in the free market. It's a government-controlled monopoly. The principles of supply and demand affect it at a macro level, but the deals between politicians and teachers' unions have created some perverse incentives. It's led to salaries only being a matter of seniority, and sometimes an advanced degree, which means that very often, the best teachers at a school earn less than the very worst. It's why you've had both inspiring teachers and mediocre ones at the same school. The rationale is that teachers need to be protected against a possible vindictive manager, so most schools have no concept of merit influencing salary. Unions also argue that linking pay to test results encourages teaching to the test and can penalize teachers in low-income schools. Your class could make a huge jump in learning and still not perform well on tests. They also say that other benchmarks, like principled evaluations, can be subjective, which is true, but you can also argue that about pretty much anyone's boss.
What would you say you do here?
So imagine if doctors were paid solely on years of experience, with no consideration for their skill, bedside manner, or whether their patients lived or died. We'd consider that nutty, but it's essentially how our public schools operate. When you combine those factors with teacher tenure, it creates a system that doesn't reward excellence as it should. And by any measure of fairness, the best teachers are seriously underpaid, while the most mediocre ones, they earn way too much. And the rest? You know, I often debate whether I should leave an opinion at the end of these videos. I usually don't, but this whole concept of teachers getting screwed over, it just isn't true. When you look at the facts, it's been an effective PR campaign that leads most people to a false conclusion. In reality, most teachers get paid what they deserve. Another completely wrong notion is the concept that people can't buy homes anymore. It's a media-driven falsehood that I totally believed until I dug into those numbers as well. The good old days just weren't that good. Hey, thanks for watching. Researching this video made me a little smarter, and I hope watching it did the same for you. Come back again.